Okay, this is the 1998 Ford Ranger with no fender flares at the moment. When I bought the truck, it had the fender flares, but they had all come off or been removed. The connectors or fasteners that held them on obviously had either come off or some had come off, and so the flares had been taken off. So in the process of basically putting the fender flares back on the Ranger, I believe these are all stock fender flares. As you can see, we have the stock holes, and I've cleaned them out. There was some mud in some of the holes, so I've cleaned any dirt out to make sure that the fasteners I'm going to use are going to go in and not have any obstructions. This is one of the fender flares that came with my truck, and upon contacting the dealer, I was told that the factory fasteners for my 98 Ranger fender flares are no longer available. You cannot actually order the factory connectors for these flares. So I went in search of fasteners that would be a suitable fit for these, as well as a way to put them on so that they will stay secure once they're on the truck. The original factory connectors obviously had some tabs on the side to hold them in place. I'm going to come up with a modified fastener that's going to hopefully stay on quite securely. Now you're going to want to take note that on the Ranger fender there's two different size fasteners, or two different size holes, which are going to require two different size fasteners. The ones on the outside that are underneath the flare and on the sides of the fender are a larger diameter fastener with a larger hole on the fender. The ones that come up underneath the fender and underneath the flare on the inside of the wheel well are a slightly smaller diameter, so that's something we have to find the correct size for. So the fasteners we've found for the sides that are going to go into the sides of the fender are a fascia retainer. They're nylon. I think some people refer to them as a Christmas tree connector or fastener, and that's the part number we're working with on these connectors, 28 mil 11 mil diameter. And this is the fasteners. This is what they look like. So they're the push-in style fastener that are going to fit and hold on our flares. The connectors I found for the underside inner holes, or the smaller holes that are on the underside of the wheel wells, are about 7 millimeter, and I was able to get them in bulk. And they're about the 7 mil. They're pretty snug going in, so you might want to check yours. Probably find something in the 6 to 7 millimeter range that will fit into those holes under the wheel wells. Okay, here's the process that we've come up with for our fasteners on our fender flares. So we're using these connectors, and they just simply slide right in where the factory ones would have gone, obviously. But one of the issues that we're concerned with is the fact that when we push these on, we want to be able to push against these without the fasteners pushing back or coming insecure in here, right? So you're going to be wanting to tap them on with a mallet or push in on the outside of the flare and make sure these go in as far as they can go. In order to do that, what we're doing is we're using our hose cutter, which is a hose cutter used for a lot of like rad hoses or any rubber hose. Taking a small piece of rubber hose and placing it in behind there just to fill that gap just lightly. Then what we're doing is taking a glue gun and filling that back area in with some glue and securing that little piece of hose in place in behind the fastener with some glue from a glue gun. So basically just used our glue gun to fill in the space behind to secure a little piece of rubber hose in there as a spacer, but also as a somewhat flexible surface to push against. And so when we push on the outside of that flare, hopefully the connector will go in, it'll have something in behind. This glue also, once it's dry, becomes quite firm, so that should transfer enough pressure to knock our connectors through. I'm not worried about these side holes, which obviously the factory connectors used, because it's not available. So hopefully that'll do the trick. Alright, so we've just got our connectors just started in each hole on the outside of the fender, and I've lined each one up individually and just pressed it in far enough just to make sure it's started and that they're basically all lined up, and then hopefully when we tap them all the way in, they all go in together evenly. So basically putting on the flares now, hopefully with all the fasteners really well secured on there and the glue, give it a few minutes to firm up and dry. Just position each fastener on the holes, just push each one in just far enough just to get it started, get them all lined up, and then basically work my way around, putting pressure on. I thought it was going to be a mallet was going to be the best, but actually for the most part just pushing them in with good solid firm pressure with the palm of your hand seemed to get them in most of the way, and then I did use the mallet just to tap them in with a fair good whack with a mallet if I couldn't quite get them in any further by pressing them in. But just pushing them in with firm pressure seems to work well with these types of fasteners, and work your way around until they're all nice and flush. As for the fasteners that go in underneath the wheel wells, I found that those ones you're going to definitely need a mallet. So you just get them lined up and a few good taps with a mallet, and they go in and they're quite secure and quite solid. So there's the finished product, basically with our 98 Ranger with our Fender flares installed and secured.